Today's episode is brought to you by Naked Nutrition. Naked Nutrition provides you with pure protein powders and supplements to help you meet your nutrition and fitness goals. Naked Nutrition is completely transparent about their ingredients. That way you know exactly what's going into your body. No additives means your body gets more of what it needs, and I suggest checking out the chocolate Naked Whey protein powder. Right now you can get 10% off your first purchase at nakednutrition.com by using the code POD. That's 10% off using the code POD for first-time customers. Take your nutrition to the next level with Naked Nutrition. Welcome to the Bro Country Podcast. My name is Joey, and as always, I am joined by...
Hey man, it's Chris over here. What's going on, Joey?
Hey my man, not much. Just hanging out and ready to enjoy some time off work for this holiday. How about
That's
yourself?
right. Yeah, I'm ready to get this long weekend started.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, guys, welcome back. Episode 9 of the Bro Country Podcast. We're going to go ahead and jump into our News Out of Nashville segment, and after that on today's episode, we're just going to really be talking about some of the history of Nashville and why it's called Music City, USA. And then we're just going to talk about some of our favorite experiences that we've had on our visits to Nashville and go from there. So to kick things off, for our News Out of Nashville this week, the country music world lost an icon in Hal Ketchum. You may know him as the singer on the song Small Town Saturday Night. He recently passed due to complications from dementia, so prayers and thoughts go out to his friends and family. Definitely a sad loss there.
Yeah, I mean it's that's one of those 90s songs. I mean, he had a bunch of other songs too, but I don't want to call him a one-hit wonder because he was not. I mean, he was a member of the Grand Ole Opry. He had multiple top 10 hits, but when you think of Hal Ketchum, you think of Small Town Saturday Night, and that's still a song that gets played all the time on radio, and it's just kind of a quintessential 90s song. And it's sad to lose him. It's been a tough year for country music, man.
Yeah, man, a lot of big names have passed this year, unfortunately. So definitely hate to hear that. But
yeah, absolutely.
Some good news this week: Morgan Wallen was invited back to Saturday Night Live to perform on December 5th. So that's pretty exciting for Morgan with everything that he was going through and how they kind of canceled his appearance about a month ago now or so.
Yeah, I mean they didn't make him wait very long. I'm sure. I mean, I've heard interviews before. I mean, they do not book Saturday Night Live very far in advance because they want people that are like hot in the moment. So, I mean, I remember reading an interview with Luke when he was booked, and they literally asked him a week and a half before the show. I mean,
yeah.
So, I'm sure that whenever it all went down with Morgan, last month, they probably told him, be ready, and you're gonna get another shot quick. So I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I think it was mostly just due to him after that college football game, not social distancing, not wearing a mask at those parties and bars and stuff. So they were just more concerned about, spreading the coronavirus. So they probably just gave him some time to get through the quarantine time of 14 days and then some or whatever, and have him back on. So that's great that he gets that opportunity.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a big moment. It's kind of like a you made it moment for artists to get invited to SNL, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
But yeah, the Grammy nominations came out a couple days ago, and the Grammys are scheduled to air on January 31st of 2021. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about the nominees?
Yeah, I mean the Grammy nominees, Grammy Awards for country music, they're always they're always very different than the CMAs and the ACMs. I mean, it's an entirely different body of people that are voting on the awards, and it's more like industry music people, not necessarily Nashville people voting on them. So I mean, some of the biggest acts ever. I mean, George Strait, he only has 2 Grammys. Kenny Chesney's never won a Grammy. They're always really hard to predict, and it's not any different this year. I mean, the best country album at the Grammys. All 5 of them are from female acts. It's Little Big Town, Miranda Lambert, Ashley McBride, Ingrid Andress, and Brandy Clark. So you got some huge albums that were overlooked. I mean, obviously Luke's album was overlooked. John Party's album was overlooked. And if you go to Best Country Solo Performance, which is essentially country song of the year, our guy Eric Church, stick that in your country song. That's pretty awesome. But then Bluebird by Miranda, but the other three are not mainstream songs. They were not hits. Who You Thought I Was by Brandy Clark. Okay. When My Amy Prays, which is a song by Vince Gill for his wife Amy Grant, which I've heard Vince perform a couple times, but obviously it wasn't a big hit. And then Black Like Me by Mickey Guyton, which I think this is, from what I read, maybe the first solo nomination ever for a black female. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is incredible. I would, Vince has got by far the most Grammys for any country artist, like twice as many Grammys as any other country artist of all time. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he won. They're always really hard to predict, but it's really cool to see Eric get a nomination there because he's really he's about the only male mainstream artist that got a nomination this year.
Yeah, that's incredible, and what a fitting song to be nominated at the Grammys.
Yeah, I mean, that shows you the people that are voting for the Grammys. I can't imagine that the Nashville insiders are going to give Eric much love for a song that in a lot of interpretations are kind of he's kind of not bashing Nashville, but
taking shots at the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Typical Eric, though.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see who takes those home. So that'll be great to tune into.
Yeah, and Eric it wouldn't surprise me if Eric gets if he gets a performance slot. They usually only have 2 or 3 country artists perform on the Grammys, so it would not surprise me if Eric gets to perform on the Grammys. That'll be interesting to watch.
That would be sweet, absolutely. Yep. But getting into the charts over the past week, man, what'd those look like?
Yeah, I mean this was a big week for the charts. I mean Stapleton's album debuted at number 1. He did almost 103,000 equivalent units. I think it's only the third album in the last 2.5 years that have done at least 100,000 in a week. As we've talked before, Stapleton, he always does good with albums. I mean, Traveler I think is number 7 on the chart this week, and it's been out 5 years. So he's
insane.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean Morgan's "More Than My Hometown" is the number 1 song at radio this week, and I think they're gonna move on quick from it because Seven Summers is already climbing the radio chart. So they'll probably stop pushing that one, which you and I know we both love "More Than My Hometown." It's probably my favorite of the Morgan songs that have came out in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a great song.
Yeah, it really reminds me of It kind of reminds me of something that Tim McGraw would have cut back in the mid to late '90s. I don't know. There's a vibe to it that I really like.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I like that. I didn't think of it that way, but now that you mention it, absolutely.
And then they're not official yet, but Billboard there was an article this week that announced kind of the year-end awards, and obviously Luke's album "What You See Ain't Always What You Get" will be the top Billboard album for the year. And Morgan Wallen's "Chasing You" will be the number 1 song at radio for the year. And the Billboard Artist of the Year will be Luke, back-to-back years, which it's been a while since a country artist was Billboard's number 1 artist for 2 years in a row. But Luke's going to take it this year. I'm guessing right now Morgan's going to take it next year because the double album that's dropping in January. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see, but that's awesome for Luke. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge, man.
It's incredible. He's just like the biggest thing in country music right now, as we've talked about multiple times on the show.
Yep.
But just to see him keep like putting up accolades and stats like this is just monumental for him. So awesome. But yeah, that's our short little recap on our News Out of Nashville segment.
Yeah, not as much going on this week probably as the last couple of weeks that we covered.
Yeah, it was kind of a slow week, so not much, but some good stuff going on nonetheless. But to kind of move on to the meat of the episode and just kind of talk a little bit about Nashville and the roots of Nashville and why it's known as Music City, and again, kind of our first experiences in Nashville and some of our favorite moments.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to this one. I mean, when you think of country music, you think of Nashville. So I mean, you can't really separate the two. Nashville is country music.
Yeah.
So it's as we're getting ready to get into it, it's just such a cool place, so much history, so much going on. It's just It's an awesome city. It's probably my favorite city if I had to pick one city.
I would put it in top 3 places I've visited for sure. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
me
top
too,
2,
man.
and that's
Yeah,
only because I've been to Boston. And for those of you that don't know, I'm a huge Patriots fan. So going to Foxborough and Boston was pretty cool. But
yeah. You are a super Patriots fan. You are a dedicated fan.
it's been an interesting season, but we won't get into that. We miss Tom Brady, that's for sure.
That's right, man.
But yeah, I did some research just kind of on the roots of Nashville and why it's known as Music City, USA. And I found a source. It was NashvilleMLS.com, an article by Gary Ashton that he wrote last year in 2019, and it just kind of went over the fact that Tennessee's been known for instruments and music all the way back to the 1700s, mostly the fiddle. So when they actually settled the city, there was like a big celebration with buck dancing and fiddle tunes. And Davy Crockett was actually the first celebrity to appear there and play the fiddle as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was an interesting fun fact that I found that I didn't know. So I thought that was pretty cool. But it really, Nashville really started to be recognized for music around 1824 when the hymnal Western Harmony was published out of Nashville. And then in the late 1800s when the Ryman Auditorium was built and became a very popular venue due to the centralized location and just the natural acoustics that the Ryman has. So that was kind of when they really got known, for being related to music, especially country music.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in 1925, WSM chose Nashville on the Ryman as the location for the Grand Ole Opry show, which, for those of you that don't know, is the oldest live-running radio show in existence. So that was another kind of just pivotal point in the history of Nashville and its connection to country music. And in 1950, WSM announcer David Cobb dubbed Nashville City as Music City USA, and it just kind of stuck. But something that is very interesting, kind of like what you were mentioning, you think of Nashville and you automatically think country music, but there are so many different artists of different genres that go there to make it, so to speak. There's people that play R&B, jazz, rock, gospel that move to Nashville to try to make a life in music.
Oh yeah, it's
just so cool.
It's where almost all the Christian music is recorded in Nashville. Obviously, country music. I was looking earlier today. The majority of Elvis's recordings were done in Nashville. Most people think of Elvis in Memphis, but most of his recording was done in Nashville.
Yeah, which is awesome. Just so much history and so many great artists that have came out of Nashville from all different walks of music.
Absolutely.
And another reason that it kind of was connected to Music City. Another fun fact I found that was pretty cool was back in the 1800s, the Fisk Jubilee Singers came from Nashville, Nashville's Fisk University, and they were actually doing like an international tour around the world. And the Queen of England heard them, and it's said that she may have been the first person to call Nashville Music City because she made a comment that said the Fisk Jubilee Singers came from the Music City.
Oh, that's cool, man.
When touring. So I thought that was pretty cool that the Queen of England kind of was the first person, supposedly, to call Nashville Music City. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Nashville's got so much history and so much musical history. It's been around for so long now that a lot of the stories are probably kind of like urban legend. It's hard to tell really where so much of it started from. And, there's so many different parts of Nashville that are just so just iconic. We're getting ready to jump into a bunch of them, but Nashville, for anyone that loves country music, until you go there, you're not really going to understand just how much history is there.
Absolutely. From the Grand Ole Opry House to the Ryman Auditorium, the Country Music Hall of Fame, Tootsie's Bar, Bluebird Cafe.
Yeah.
Tin Roof. Just so many just historic places in town. So,
yeah, absolutely. How far away from Nashville are you, Joey? How long does it take you to get there?
About a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, I'm probably about 5.5, 6 hours. So it's not. It's
bad.
It's not too bad. But when I was a kid, Nashville felt really far away. I was trying to think earlier today. I don't think I went to Nashville until I was 27 years old. So somebody that loves country music like us, looking back, it's shocking to me that I didn't somehow make it to Nashville before I was 27 years old. But what about you? How old were you when you made it to Nashville for the first time?
It was just a couple of years ago. I was, gosh, I'll be 29 next month.
Oh, we were probably
Yeah,
both 27
yeah, I
when
was
we
like
went to Nashville.
26, I think,
Yeah,
26, almost 27 when I went because it was October of 2018.
yeah, that's
So
wild,
yeah,
isn't it?
I was 26. So yeah, that's pretty ironic. We were about the same age when we went. That's cool.
Absolutely, man.
But speaking of the first time you went, what was that experience like? What did you do while you were there? Anything related to country music or?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the very first time that I went to Nashville, back in 2010, Nashville, the city was flooded, like devastating floods. Like the Opry House was completely flooded. The Opryland Hotel was completely flooded. Like Lower Broadway was totally flooded. So actually, Garth Brooks did a 9-show set that December. Actually, I was looking up the dates because I was trying to remember. But it was December 16th through 22nd, 2010. So right at 10 years ago. And it was, he had kind of came out of retirement. He was doing the Vegas show at the time, but he had not put out any new music and he had not toured, in a decade or longer. So I just remember, I can't really, I mean, I literally got tickets like, he put tickets on sale for these 9 shows like 2 weeks before the shows. Like it was literally just like a spur of the moment kind of thing. And I don't really remember how I found out about it or how I got the tickets. But somehow I stumbled onto a couple tickets and I went to Nashville. That was the very first time I got tickets to Garth's show at the Bridgestone. And I think that show was a Saturday night. So I go down on Friday night, and I don't know anything about Nashville. I've never been there before. I've heard all the stories. I know all the lore, but I've never been there before. And I'm driving into town, and there's this huge like video billboard, and it's got as I'm driving into town, it's got the Opry for that night on the billboard, wow. And it says Vince Gill, Grand Ole Opry. Well, I mean, as we'll discuss, and as I've mentioned in the past, Vince is one of my all-time favorites. So I just thought, I had no clue how to get Grand Ole Opry tickets. I was looking back.
It's a different world back 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
I mean, looking back, it's bizarre. But I mean, I just thought, well, I really didn't have anything planned on doing on that Friday evening. I was gonna just try to probably go to Broadway and walk up and down and go in the bars. But to get to go to the Grand Ole Opry with Vince there, I thought, well, I'm gonna at least try. So we went to the hotel, we checked in, and then I thought the Grand Ole Opry was still downtown. I had no clue that the Opry House was, what do you think, 10 or 15 minutes outside of town?
Yeah, probably about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not downtown anymore, so I had to get over there, and they just happened to have a couple. I got like, I don't know if I got the last seats, but we were in the last row of the Opry House. And I had no clue who was on the show other than Vince because he was the only one that was being advertised. So, I mean, I'm there, and I'm like, I have like, that's one of those moments that like I can remember what it smelled like, what it looked like being at the Grand Ole Opry for the first time is like for a country music fan is like going to, I mean, it's, you don't really get any better than that. So
going to your favorite football team's Super Bowl or something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So Vince was there, Steve Wariner was there, nice. But probably the most memorable moment of that night was little Jimmy Dickens came out and performed. And at the time, he was the oldest performer. He was 93. He ended up dying just not that long after we saw him. But little Jimmy is from West Virginia, and he had been a Grand Ole Opry member for like 65, 70 years. He actually has a statue outside of the Ryman now. Yeah. But he was not advertised. So he came out, told a few jokes, sang one song. The crowd went insane because that was right after kind of he was in a lot of the Brad Paisley videos, and he had done some skits with Carrie Underwood, so like everybody kind of knew who little Jimmy was. And I mean, he's like 4 feet. He was like 4 feet tall, 90-some years old, still so funny, still sounded great, and like just to get to see him and Vince at my first Opry show, that was and then that was the best moment of my first trip to Nashville. I mean, I got to see Garth the next night, but I don't really. I mean, I've seen Garth a few times, so I don't really have any vivid memories of that particular show with Garth. But I remember the Opry show, like it was yesterday.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's just such an awesome place.
Get to see two of your top guys back to back in a weekend. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, yep, makes it worth it, man. But
what about you, man? What was your first trip to Nashville like, or what took you there?
well, my first trip, it was for my wife and I's wedding anniversary. We were gonna go to Nashville just for like a 4-day weekend, type getaway, and my mother-in-law found out, and she was like, "Oh," and she knows that we're big Luke Combs fans. She's like, "Oh, is Luke gonna be down there at the Opry?" And I was like, "No, he's not scheduled to be there that week. We might get some tickets to go to the Opry, but I don't even remember who was gonna be there." But she was like, "Well, why don't you try to reschedule it when Luke's gonna be there?" And I was like, "Well, we've already got our hotel booked, and he didn't announce that he was going to actually be there, blah, 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 until after we booked the hotel and got the time off work and blah, blah, blah." And she was like, "Well, it's what, 2 weeks after you're scheduled to go?" I was like, "Yeah, about 2 weeks." And she was like, "Well, see if you can, haggle those hotel dates and your vacation time and move it around a little bit." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know why you're worried about it, but okay." Very thoughtful of you for us to, want us to be able to see our favorite artists, but okay. But anyway, so I was able to move the dates around, and she was like, "Well, let me know if you can move it around." So we were able to, and she was like, "Okay, well, log in and buy 2 tickets. I'm getting them for you guys for an anniversary gift."
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and they were only on StubHub. The Opry was sold out, so she got us tickets in row BB, I believe. So that's like the second pew back at the Opry House.
Oh wow.
But we were on the right side of the stage, so we were like 2 rows back on the right side of the stage, and that was an awesome gift. That was like super thoughtful and so nice, and we were so stoked, and I forever thankful for that. But yeah, so that was what took us there for our anniversary, and we were able to see Luke at the Opry.
Yeah, I mean, it was at the Opry House, not the Ryman, right? Opry
Yeah,
House.
I've actually never been to the Ryman. I mean, I've walked by the Ryman and like looked in it and things, but I haven't actually been to a show at the Ryman.
Oh man,
both
that's gonna be on your bucket list right there.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list. But both times I've been to the Opry, it's been at the Opry House outside of town. So.
What do you have, like, I mean, the first time you went to the Grand Ole Opry, was it like, did you know the history of the Opry? Did you know just how important the Opry was to country music?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's why we made it a point that we were gonna go regardless of who was really playing.
Yeah.
But to be honest, we hadn't even really looked at the schedule because we knew Luke wasn't gonna be there, and we were just like, whatever, we'll go see a show and then just kind of spend some time hopping around the bars and restaurants and on Broadway and things like that. But yeah, definitely knew how important it was to country music. And it's funny that well, it's not funny. It was a horrible time for Nashville when you were talking about the floods, though. When you go back, you've been back since, they do that like pre-roll video where Carrie Underwood's talking about when the floods happen and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just ironic that you were down there around that time, and then I went, 8 years later, and it's still a part of the Opry, and they talk about it. But
yeah, I mean, the Opry. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about the Opry multiple times on this podcast. I mean, we love current country, we love 90s country, we love the history of country, and the Opry really is kind of as you said, it's the longest running radio show in American history, and the history of the Opry and the history of the performers on the Opry and the history of the membership of the Opry really is kind of it's the glue that kind of connects all of Nashville and all of country music. So I mean, the Opry is such an important kind of just institution of Nashville.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And all the people that are members and artists that get invited to go play, they just take it so serious, and it's like a kind of like when I was talking about Morgan going to SNL. This is like the moment where they look at themselves and are like, I made it. Like, this is what they dream of, to be inducted. And not everybody accepts the invitation, or not everybody really wants to do it because they don't want to commit to doing all the shows that are required with being an Opry member. But
yeah,
those that do commit and do get to perform there, they take it very serious and are honored to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen interviews before where Garth literally says that the number one moment of his career was when he was asked to be an Opry member. I think Luke has said very similar things. I mean, Reba, Vince. I mean, some of the biggest stars in country music hold the Opry so dear. I mean, if you're a member of the Opry, you get to play the Opry until the day you die. So that's one thing very unique about country music is that country music does not kind of push their people away. Like if you're in country music, specifically the Opry, you are a member for life. Which that's so awesome, man.
Yeah, definitely. And it was really cool the first time I went because obviously Luke was there, Kelsey Ballerini performed, Charlie Daniels performed, Bill Anderson performed.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there was a couple others. Oh, Craig Morgan was there. How could I forget Craig?
Goodness, that was a stacked lineup right there.
It was like one or two, maybe one more. I think I cannot remember, but yeah, it was stacked, and it was so incredible to see such a wide array of different generations of country music and different styles all in one night. And I mean, for those of you that don't know, at the Opry, most artists will play anywhere from like 1 to 5 different songs that they have. So you get to really see a few like top hits from each artist that's scheduled that night, which is, sometimes you can think of it as a letdown because you're like, oh, I only got to hear 3 songs by my favorite artist, or you could look at it as, wow, I just got to hear 3 to 5 songs from all these phenomenal artists that are Opry members. So,
yeah, I mean, it's there have been times I've gone to the Opry, and my favorite moment of the night was from somebody that I had never heard of before. That very first time I think the first time that I went to the Ryman, there's a singer-songwriter in Nashville. His name is Lucas Hogue, and he has a song called "The Power of Garth," and it's literally a song talking about just how powerful Garth's lyrics were and how powerful he was and how much he meant to people. And I had never heard of this guy. I had never heard of the song. And he got a standing ovation. The place went crazy, and I've listened to that song hundreds of times since I was there that night. So I mean, there's always people on the Opry that are not big stars, or maybe big in bluegrass or big in just different kind of genres of country music, and you get exposed to all of that when you go to the Opry. It's just such a cool place.
Yeah, most definitely, man. How many times have you been to Nashville?
Oh, goodness. Well, I went in 2010, and then I didn't go again probably for 6 or 7 years. And then, but I've been three or four times. Actually, one of my good buddies lives in Nashville now, so we have a free place to stay. So that helps out a lot. Plus, I mean, how much we love traveling and how much we love music. So once you go to Nashville, you can't wait to go back. Yeah,
you'll be back for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll be as soon as the Bridgestone opens, or as soon as there's a huge event, we're going back for sure.
Yeah, I'm there. Count me in, especially after this year.
Yeah. So what's your? I mean, that was your first time, and you've been back a couple more times, right?
Yeah, I've been back twice since. So I've been in Nashville a total of 3 times. The second time was, it's probably one of my favorite moments as a country music fan, period. It was for Eric Church's show at Nissan Stadium during the Double Down tour on May 25th of 2019. That was just absolutely probably the best show. It's hard to say the best show, but top 2 to 3 show I've ever been to in my life. And the story behind that, my wife and I were going to go, and we just I ordered some nosebleeds off Ticketmaster. They were like $25 a piece. I'm like, I don't even care if I'm in the very top row as long as I'm there.
Yep.
And unfortunately, my wife wasn't able to make it due to babysitter situation and work schedule, I believe. And so I had to find someone to go with. And my buddy Christian, I asked him, and he was down to go because he's not a real big country music fan, but he likes Eric Church a lot. And shortly after I bought the tickets, come to find out, it was my other good friend, like my best friend Corey. His bachelor party was going to be in Nashville that same weekend.
Oh, that's good timing right there.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, man, you got to come to my bachelor party." And I'm like, "Oh crap, I've already got these tickets to this concert, and I love you to death, but I'm not gonna miss this." So we drive
That
down.
shows where your priorities are, Joey.
I know, what kind of friend am I, right?
Oh,
No,
that's
but
funny.
so we basically drive down super early. We wake up that morning, Saturday morning. Christian, my buddy, and I, we drive to Nashville, check into the hotel. We're tired because we're like, we just drove for like 5.5 hours, and blah blah blah. And Corey is like, hey man, we've got an Airbnb. You got to come over and have some drinks with us. We're just kind of hanging out, and we're gonna hit the town while you guys are at the concert. Then we can meet back up after. I'm like, all right, let's see how this goes. So we go over there and have a few drinks, do the whole bachelor party thing, and we have a Lyft come pick us up and take us to Nissan Stadium, and it was just insane how many people were outside of the stadium. And because I had been checking Ticketmaster for like a couple weeks up until the show, and I'm like, God, there's still so many tickets left. I'm like, I hope that there's a huge turnout, because for those of you that don't know, the Double Down tour was where Eric did 2 shows in each city per weekend, and he did the show by himself with no opening act, and he would go for 3 to 4 hours a night, just crushing it. So this was just a big moment for him in his career to play the first stadium show, first off, and especially by himself. Well, the Lyft driver dropped us off or whatever, and you just see all these people. I'm like, I've never seen so many people at a country concert. This is madness. Well, we get to our seats finally, whatever, and the seats just start filling up, and it actually broke Taylor Swift's attendance record at Nissan Stadium. I believe there was around 58,000 people. You may know the close to
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, 58,000 people, I believe, showed out for that concert, and the energy there was freaking nuts. Eric went past 1 a.m.
Oh my
He went past
man.
1 a.m. and just kept going, man. He was still amped up, and when he first came out, he gave kind of like after the opening song, which was Drowning Man, he gave like a little speech about like, I forget the wording, but it was like, hell yeah, this is what it's about, blah blah blah. So cool, man. That was an awesome moment to be able to see him achieve that record, and hopefully it sustains for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously I wasn't there, but I would think that probably helped, or maybe was the reason that he won Entertainer of the Year. You think?
I would say so.
That show? I mean, that tour, obviously,
the
but that
tour,
show really
yeah.
probably pushed it over the edge for him.
I would agree with you, and that was the reason why I thought he should have won it in 2019 over Garth. And I believe I've said this on the show before. No disrespect to Garth, he's an absolute living legend of country music, but that was why I believe 2019 was the year for Eric to win. But you know what? He's won one now, and
That's
that
right.
is all that matters.
That's right. I mean, Eric he's the only, for one thing, he's the only person that has tried to do a full show with no opener. Like you said, 3.5, 4 hours long. I mean, that is crazy. I mean,
The intermission was only like 20 minutes, I think.
yeah.
I mean, he would do a 20-minute intermission, obviously, and come right back out for the second set and just crush it. And
That's wild, man.
And we've talked about it before, but he just gets the crowd so engaged and involved and just like drawn in so well, and everybody's singing the lyrics, everybody's standing up, like no one is just like sitting like a bump on a log at an Eric concert, especially that one.
Yeah, I mean, my experience from seeing shows in Nashville is that the crowd in Nashville is always going to be one of the best crowds, because you're not only getting the people that live in Nashville, but you're getting the people like us that specifically go to Nashville to see the shows in Nashville. So the couple shows that I have seen in Nashville, either at the Bridgestone or at the Opry, it's some of the best, liveliest crowds that I've ever seen.
Yeah, and speaking of the Eric show I went to, if you guys haven't seen like a picture of that crowd, just Google Eric Church Nissan Stadium show, and it was just a packed house. I mean, there were other artists there. Ashley McBryde was there. A couple of other artists were there. They didn't sing. They were there as fans to watch. So
It's wild, isn't it, man?
yeah, it's so cool, and good for him on that Entertainer of the Year award. He deserved it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at my notes because pretty much every time you go to Nashville, you're gonna make like crazy, amazing memories, and you're going there for like a specific reason, and there's a story behind it. At least that's when I look back at my trips to Nashville. There's always like just something amazing that happens, So actually the first time that Lindsay and I ever went to Nashville, we went. I don't know. It's probably been I think it's been 3 years ago now. But they did a fundraiser for the Las Vegas relief after the shootings at Route 91, and it was called Country Rising, and it was at Bridgestone, and I mean the lineup that night was crazy. It was Aldean, Dierks Bentley, Sam Hunt, Lady A, Little Big Town, Martina McBride, Reba, Stapleton, and George Strait.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was like each artist did 3 or 4 songs, but I just remember you're talking about the biggest stars in country music, and then at the very end, Garth was doing a show in Kansas City, and he came on the screen. He wasn't there, but he came on the screen and introduced George Strait as the king of country music. And George hasn't really done a ton of shows in the last 3 or 4 years, so there's probably a lot of people that haven't seen him, or it had been years. And he came out at the very end, and he did Amarillo by Morning and Troubadour. And I mean, I've seen hundreds of shows in my life, and that's one of the 5 best moments that I've ever had at a country concert. Like, he followed the biggest stars in country music right now, and he was the biggest star of the night. Like, when you're in a stadium or when you're in an arena and George Strait's singing Amarillo by Morning, that's about as good as it gets right there.
Oh man, that's incredible! I would have loved to have been at a show with that lineup. That's so awesome.
We were in the last row on that one too. I get good tickets sometimes, but sometimes I'm like you said, I just want to be in the building. Like, I've never really cared about like being front row, or I just want to be in the building and experience that energy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I've been all over arenas and shows, from the pit to the top of the rafters, so to speak. And as long as you've got a seat in the house, man, that's all that matters. Everybody's there for the same reason, and just to be together, listen to live music, and celebrate the music with each other. And some people get bent out of shape when, I've seen different Facebook groups, they get kind of PO'd when they don't get like pit tickets or, floor seats. And those are great. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I had my choice, I would definitely be in the pit or in a floor seat. But I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be in the arena,
Yeah, absolutely, man.
That's all that should matter.
Especially when we get to again, I just want to be in the arena, man.
I just want to be there. Standing in the top row and there's not a seat left. Just get me in there,
Oh, that's funny, man. Okay, so tell us about the time to Nashville that I want to hear the most about. Tell me about the last time you went to Nashville.
Man, so that was last year. Gosh, I'm having a blank here. I think it was July July of 2019. It was when Luke Combs was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry. I made a trip to the Opry induction for Luke Combs, and I actually bought the ticket on a whim. They announced the date, and I was driving, and someone called me, I believe, or I saw a text pop up on my phone because I had my phone mounted on my dash,
Yep.
And it popped up and was like, Luke's Opry date is da-da-da, and I was like, whoa, let me pull over real quick. So I pulled over in a gas station parking lot, jumped on the Opry's website, and grabbed a ticket because it was a weekday, and, unfortunately, again, my wife couldn't get off work, and with having a younger child, it's just hard to situate those things. And she was like, what, if you want to, I did call her first, actually, and she was like, if you want to go, because I want to know if I need to get 1 or 2 tickets, and she's like, if you want to go with like a friend or something, I don't care, you can just go, because she's awesome. But so I got a ticket for myself, and no one could really go like that I'm super close friends with.
Yeah, we were not super close yet, or I would have been there with you.
Yeah, we had, I think we'd been talking on through like social media and stuff, but we hadn't actually really hung out much or anything yet.
Yeah.
So, but so I get the ticket. The day comes, and I have no one to go with, and my ticket is by myself. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't even care. I just want to be a part of this moment in country music history. And down the road, a bunch of Luke Combs fan club members, we actually all met up and had dinner together at the, oh my gosh, I forget the name of the restaurant, but it's like the Aquarium restaurant inside the mall across from the Opry House.
Oh, yeah.
There was probably like 10 to 15 of us that met up, and most of us had never met before, obviously, because we're all from different walks of life and different states, and so that was really cool to get to meet a lot of these people that you see on Facebook all the time and posting in the groups and the fan club and everything. But we had dinner together, took a bunch of pictures together, kind of hung out outside of the Opry House beforehand. But then the moment came when the show was starting, and I had to go to my seat, and I was by myself, and it was so funny because I was sitting with a family that was there for like this big reunion. So everybody in this, and I was in like the nosebleeds for this one. I just grabbed a cheap ticket so I can make it into the show. Again, the principle of being there, not caring about where you're at. So I was in like the nosebleeds of the Opry House, and the row I was in, the whole row of the section I was in, and then almost the whole row beneath me was one big family.
Oh, that's cool.
And they were there for this reunion, and I think I was sitting next to one of the grandma and grandpas, and they were this sweet older couple, and they kind of were looking at me weird, like, you don't belong here. You're not in our family. Like, who are you? And I'm just like looking at them.
That's
like,
awesome,
man, this
man.
is so awkward, but I'm just gonna enjoy the moment, even
That's
if
right.
even if I'm singing these songs by myself, which I was. And it was after Vince Gill was there. Joe Diffie, rest in peace, he was
Rest
there.
in peace, man.
Luke. Dustin Lynch showed up for the induction. He didn't actually perform.
Yeah, Craig Morgan was there.
Craig Morgan was there.
Yeah. I think Mark Wills, Chris Jansen.
Mark Wills was there, and Chris Jansen. Yep. I mean, there were so many people there, and it was probably after Vince Gill performed when the grandma and grandpa next to me were like, "Man, you know all these songs, don't you?" And I was like, "I get it. Yeah, luckily." And they were like, "Who are you here with?" And I was like, "Actually, I came by myself." And I was with a bunch of the fan club members, but our tickets are all scattered throughout the venue. And they were like, "That's so cool. Where are you from?" And I was like, and it's really hard to explain where I'm from, so I just say Cincinnati, but because I'm from a small town in between Cincinnati and Dayton, as you know. And they're like, "Oh, okay. That was like a pretty far, drive for you." And I'm like, "Oh, it's about 5 hours." And they're like, "Oh, well, that's not too bad."
And Joey, you drove down and then you drove back, right?
Oh yeah, I was getting to that part.
That shows the dedication right there. That is dedication.
Yeah. So, got to see all these great artists perform, got to be there for Luke getting inducted, his little speech that he gave, and I mean, it was such an incredible experience. I'm so glad I got to be a part of that. Just to see Luke playing in bars, to very small arenas, to large arenas, and then being inducted into the Grand Ole Opry has been a cool thing as a fan. But yeah, the Opry concluded, and I hit the road to get back to Ohio.
Oh my goodness,
immediately,
man.
And I think I got home. It was probably like 4 o'clock in the morning, roughly, when I got home, and I just crashed. It was absolutely nuts. But such a cool experience, and
such a great memory, right?
Yeah, so thankful that I went.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. Probably just because I had something going on at work, but I'm sure I looked at it and contemplated getting tickets, but I didn't, and I regret it. I definitely regret it. I wish I mean, that's a like you said, that's a big moment in the history of Luke's career and just in the history of country music.
Yeah. I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to go, and definitely something I'll never forget. And being able to see Joe Diffie also, we lost him this year, unfortunately, and just being able to see him sing live again was pretty cool, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's, some years the Opry will ask 3 or 4 people. Some years they only ask 2 people. I mean, to get asked to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry is rare. There are people that have played the Grand Ole Opry 50, 100 times and are not members of the Grand Ole Opry. And it's super rare for somebody to get asked as early in their career as Luke was. But Luke embraced the Opry from like the second that he moved to Nashville. Like the Opry was and is and will always be important to Luke. And I'm sure that they, like you said, most of the time other people don't just show up to the inductions. So, I mean, I think the other artists in Nashville knew how important of a night that was.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, he's been playing at the Opry since, like 2016 or 17?
Yeah, I think they said that he had already played the Opry almost 20 times before he was asked to be a member.
Yeah, and I've heard that, like, every time he was asked to go, he just did it. Like, every time, as with his schedule willing anyway.
Yeah. it's just a quick memory. We were living at our other house when he was asked, which was probably like April or May of that year, and they had made a big deal out of it. He was doing back-to-back shows, and they back then they didn't live stream the Opry on YouTube, but you could go on the Opry app and listen to the Opry live. And I just had a feeling all day that they were going to ask him. They were going to ask him. This was the time they were going to ask him. And I remember it was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, whatever time it was when he was performing. And when John Conley came out, and then Craig Morgan and Chris Jansen came out and asked him, I was like losing my mind in my living room. I was so excited for Luke. To see younger artists embrace the Opry it's just cool. I really like that about Luke and some of the other people that have embraced it.
Most definitely. And the video that came out of him being asked was super cool too, because he was just hit with like a ton of bricks of emotion, and you could tell that just meant a lot to him. And even when he was inducted, you could just tell that he holds it very near and dear to his heart. And yeah, definitely an iconic moment in country music period, and my country music fandom being able to go to that. But
it's so cool, man.
Yeah, all my close friends called me crazy. Like, you're crazy, man. You're 5.5 hours to see some guy in a fishing shirt get inducted to a Grand Ole Opry. Like, what? But
hey, man, that's why we're sitting here doing this podcast.
Yeah, everybody's got their thing, and country music just happens to be ours. So
that's right, man. That's right. My last trip to Nashville was actually when I got to see Luke. I saw Luke on the Opry at the Ryman, and then I ran across the street and saw him headline Bridgestone in the same night.
I remember you telling me about that.
I haven't been able to confirm this yet, but I don't think anyone has ever done that before. I don't think anyone has ever performed on the Opry and headlined the Bridgestone in the same night. I think Luke is the only artist in the history of country music to do that. And it was the closing night of the tour.
Yeah.
So I barely remember because it was so frantic. Like, we literally went and saw the first segment of the Opry. Luke finished, and then we ran literally across the street because the Ryman is right across the street from the Bridgestone. Yeah. And Morgan was opening, and he was already we missed Jameson, and Morgan was already halfway through his set by the time we got over there. Oh, and then we saw Luke perform. I mean, it was a hectic evening, but just another one of those memories that we'll never forget.
Yeah, I remember talking to you that day and night, and then the next day after, you were just telling me how crazy it was and frantic, and but still how awesome of an experience it was.
Yeah, we got up and walked out of the Opry, and I'm thinking, like, nobody gets up and walks out of the Grand Ole Opry. Right. And Ricky Skaggs was performing, and we literally hunched down and snuck out the back door because I felt so bad about leaving.
Yeah,
but just had to get across the street.
Oh yeah, well, it makes you wonder if you guys were the only ones or if there were other
Well, I think there was. I know that there was at least 2 other people because I've seen them post in Bootleggers about it, and they were actually sitting right in front of Lindsay and I. So I know that there were at least a couple more, but there couldn't have been many. I know there weren't many.
Now that you mention it, though, about playing the Ryman and then going and playing Bridgestone, I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody doing that in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild.
Nothing comes off the top of my head anyway. I'd have to look into it, but that's pretty crazy, pretty awesome.
It is. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
I bet he was drained after that.
Oh, I'm sure. And like I said, it was the last show of the tour, and I'm sure that they were just exhausted after that.
Oh yeah. What is your obviously, other than the Ryman or the Grand Ole Opry, but what is one of your favorite spots to go to in Nashville, or a restaurant or bar?
Well, almost every time I've ever been to Nashville, we always eat at this little Italian place. It's about 2 blocks up from Bridgestone. It's called Demo's, and they actually closed in the middle of the quarantine. So it's just that it was just this little mom and pop Italian place, and every single time I was there, you had to wait a half an hour just to get in this place. So it really took me back and shocked me when I heard that they announced that they were closing down. So I'm gonna have to find a new restaurant to eat at. I mean, I love anywhere up and down Broadway. All the honky tonks are awesome to go into. There's probably people singing in those honky tonks that are more talented than half the people on the charts. Like
Yeah.
there's live music everywhere in Nashville. It is everywhere you turn. There's live music.
Yeah. You can just walk up and down Broadway and hear with all the open like windows to the bars and doors and stuff, just all the different musicians playing in all the
Yeah,
bars.
absolutely. And I'm trying to. The only other place that I can vividly remember is, one of my all-time favorite artists is Randy Travis, and he was discovered. He was a cook at the Nashville Palace, and the Nashville Palace is actually over near the Opry. You can actually see the Opry from the Nashville Palace. Willie's Saloon and the Nashville Palace are right beside each other, and he was a cook at the Nashville Palace, and then he would get up on stage and sing at the end of the night, and he was discovered there. And we got to stop in there, and there's pictures of Randy all over the walls, and there's like the story is kind of written on the wall and stuff, and it's just everywhere, almost everybody in Nashville was discovered at a honky tonk or at a at a bar, or just they've all played those places, the Bluebird, just all those play Tin Roof, all those places. That's where all these people really cut their teeth and really were performing before they got big.
Yeah, most definitely, man. There's a ton of iconic and historical spots down there where a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean,
these
what are
big
what are
names.
some of your favorites there, man?
When I went with my wife for our anniversary a couple of years ago, we went to as many bars and restaurants as we could.
Oh, that's cool,
And
man.
we actually bar hopped one night. It was funny because we would go into one bar, have one drink, and then walk to the next bar, have a drink.
Yep.
just because we wanted to go to as many as we could.
Oh, so you hit a bunch of them then.
Oh yeah, and it was funny because I was trolling on Facebook. I would check into every single bar that I was at as soon as I got there, and
That's awesome, man.
it actually popped up in my memories a month or so ago. Well, yeah, a little over a month ago, because October was just last month on Facebook, and it was like Joey Rice and Candace checked into Tootsie's Bar, or checked into Dirk Bentley Whiskey Row, and
Old Red and
oh yeah,
Tin Roof and
Jason
all of them
Aldean's
down there.
restaurant. We went there. We went to Luke's 32 Bridge restaurant. One of my, I'm a sucker for hard rock cafes.
Oh yeah.
Every city I go to that has one, I always make a point to go. That's one of my favorite restaurants, and that's kind of like a chain deal. So I hate to like pick that, but that's probably my favorite restaurant. I really liked Aldean's restaurant. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, for people that don't know, Broadway is what I mean. It's probably not even. Is it a mile? It's probably not even a mile long. I mean,
Not
it's
very long.
not.
It's like
Yeah, I mean,
jam packed with
yeah,
different bars and
jammed
restaurants.
packed, like just
Maybe
honky
a
tonk
mile
after
total.
bar after restaurant, and it's bright lights, loud, like people everywhere. It's exactly what you would think of if you would think of what it would be like.
Yep. Dirk Bentley's Whiskey Row. I really liked that bar actually, and a good buddy of mine from high school lives down in Nashville and plays in a rock band, and they were performing that night at Whiskey Row, so that was really cool. I got to talk to him for a little bit,
Oh, that's cool, man.
and I mean he's a drummer, and he's been, not to get too far off topic, but he's been playing the drums since we were in like the first grade. So he lives in Nashville and was playing that night, so that was really cool. Um, Tootsie's didn't really do it for me. I know it's such a historic bar, and like so many big names have came through there and played there. Have you been there before?
I've walked in all of those, most of those historic places just because I wanted to see it, but I don't even think I've ever got a drink at Tootsie's because it's usually kind of dingy and
Yes,
it's not
yes,
like the new Nashville. It's like old school
yeah.
Nashville.
And it was real, well, and not to disrespect the owners or the employees or the patrons in any way, but it was just real dirty, and it looked real dirty on the inside when we went in, and the drinks were like outrageous. I can't remember how much it was, but we ordered, gosh, 2 shots and a beer, I think, and it was just like so expensive. I was like, oh my god, and I'm like, I know this is a tourist spot or whatever, and like one of the most iconic bars in town that you can visit. But I'm like, this place isn't really worth this. I'm going back to Whiskey Row.
Yeah, absolutely,
But it was
man.
cool to be there, and it was cool to walk in the same place that all those names have played, and definitely cool to experience it.
Have you ever been over to where the Bluebird Cafe is?
I haven't. No, I haven't. I didn't get a chance to, and the other 2 times I've been for their church concert, we found some little like hole in the wall burger joint, and then ordered some pizza to our hotel afterwards because we were only there for one night.
Yeah.
And then for Luke's Opry induction, I was obviously there for just one day. I didn't even spend the night in Nashville. I was literally there and only ate at that aquarium cafe, and that was all the time I really had. So I haven't had a chance to get over that way.
Yeah, I've been over there, but I have not been in the Bluebird. I mean, it's tiny, so they do songwriter rounds in the evenings, but it's almost impossible to get a ticket. So I've been over there because I mean that's where Garth was discovered, that's where Taylor Swift was discovered, but I have never been inside. So that's definitely on my Nashville bucket list to try to get in there.
Tin Roof in Nashville is pretty cool. We went there. I really like that because we've got a Tin Roof in Cincinnati as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was cool to go to the one in Nashville. Very similar vibe. Nothing really different. Just the fact that it was in Nashville kind of made it special.
Yeah, here's the deal, Joey. Sometime in 2021, we are going to Nashville.
We got to.
Yeah, we're gonna make it to Nashville sometime next year when things get a little less crazy. You and I are gonna make it to Nashville together.
Yep, it's a must,
yep.
and we'll make sure to tell you guys all about it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, those are probably my favorite spots and memories of Nashville. You got anything else you want to throw in tonight?
I'm looking at my notes here. Well, the only other thing that I had written down that is really cool was most of the record companies in the studios are on one road, kind of Music Row,
Yep.
and RCA Studio A, which is where the double album that Stapleton put out a couple years ago was recorded there, and that's where Elvis did all of his recording, and huge, like probably half of the classic recordings that we know. So it was just cool to just walk by there, and then actually where it's called Allentown Studios now, but it's actually owned by Garth, and it's the studio that Garth recorded all of his early stuff at. So we got to walk past there, didn't get to go in, but it's just cool to just walk right up and down the street where like all of this music that we've loved our whole lives is just recorded in these little buildings. It's nothing. Yeah. It's nothing fancy. It's just like, I mean, half of them look like little houses. Like
they do.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, we drove up and down. We went up the one way and then flipped around and came back to look at all the studios. And yeah, you're right. And a lot of them do look like little houses. And we when we were driving by, we saw like I don't know if it was DoorDash or Uber Eats or something. Like somebody was delivering food to one of them. And we were like trying to creep really slow to see if it was like a famous artist that was going to open the door.
That's
see if
awesome.
We could recognize them. We were just being creeps, but
that's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, you made a good point there. That was really cool to see too, because they're all just kind of on this one little strip.
Yep.
Kind of almost looks like a little neighborhood, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like a little neighborhood, and it's like, wait, these are studios? Like what? Which some of them are obviously bigger buildings and like fancier, I guess would be the term, but definitely a cool experience. If you guys haven't been to Nashville and you have the opportunity, definitely make the trip. And actually one of my other favorite places to go, and it is country music related, it was the Country Music Hall of Fame. Did you get to go through that?
Oh yeah. I think every time I've been to Nashville, like except for when I've blown in and out for a concert, like kind of like you have, I've made it. I made it over to the Hall of Fame because it's awesome, don't you think?
Oh my gosh, you could spend days in there and before you'd see every single thing, like and actually read about it and learn about it.
Yeah, days, easy.
Yeah, we loved it. It was on our anniversary trip when we got to go, and man, it was so cool. And just to see all those like it was at the modern era part of the museum where they've got like Florida Georgia Line's outfits, Eric Church's boots, Luke Combs' PFG shirt. I think they got the
Carrie Underwood's last time we were there. They had Stapleton's guitar and jacket that he wore on Traveler, and like Luke's like original guitar was there for a while. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Yeah, and then they had like his lyrics too, Luke's lyrics to "She Got the Best of Me." I think when we went.
Yeah, I think they switched it out for Better Together. I think somebody just posted a picture of that recently.
Yeah, yep, I saw that, and they had Eric Church's boots from when he first kind of moved to town that inspired the song "These Boots."
Oh, that's cool, man.
So those were cool. I took a crap ton of pictures, and something that I thought was cool, they had Eric and Luke's stuff right next to each other because it was it was like I forget the name of the exhibit. It was like the then and now kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it had Eric and it had Luke because that was when Luke was still kind of up and coming. You know, he obviously was huge, but not where he's at now. and I thought that was pretty damn cool.
Did you go in the rotunda there at the very end where they got the plaques of
Oh yeah,
everybody's face that's actually inducted?
yeah, that was cool. I took a ton of
Yeah,
pictures in there too.
it's so cool, man. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, that's another spot if you guys get a chance to go on a trip to Nashville. Definitely go to the Country Music Hall of Fame. You will not regret it seeing all those artifacts. I mean, the place is huge, and they've just got so many things. They had like one of Elvis's cars in there. I mean,
That's
Garth
cool, man.
Brooks's whatever. I mean, they had like a God, was it Trisha Yearwood? I think it was Trisha Yearwood's job application or something in there. Like it was just crazy.
Yeah, and they have. I mean, they rotate the stuff all the time. Like they
Yeah.
have a ton
Oh
of
yeah.
stuff that's like that they keep in storage. So like you literally could go once a year and you would feel like you were going for the first time because they have so much history of country music there.
And when we went, the big exhibit was on the Judds, so that was pretty cool to see all that stuff.
Yeah, we won't get into that because the Judds are not inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and they are at the top of my list of acts that should be in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
So that's weird that they've done a exhibit on them, but they have not inducted them yet.
Very weird.
Yeah, really weird.
Very interesting, but yeah, I think that's all I've got, man. Unless you got anything else for tonight.
I think I'm good, man. We could talk all night about Nashville, so we'll save more for later. But yeah, I think we're good, man.
Yep. And by the time you guys hear this episode, Thanksgiving may be over. It's tomorrow. It may not be over, but either way, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you all and your families have a great holiday. If you guys aren't following us on social media, go check us out. Just search Bro Country Podcast on Facebook. Join our group, like our page. On Instagram and Twitter, you can find us at Bro Country Pod. And thank you so much for tuning in. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, keep it country and take care of each other.